Okay, well, the intro video clip is not playing. So we'll just start here. And, it is not putting up any of my graphics. Well, Laura, we might have to do this without graphics.
That's okay. I'm okay with that if you are. Yeah.
Okay, so here we are. Welcome to Coffee on the Coast. This is an episode of Book Banter. Delighted to welcome back my guest today, Laura Schreiner from the Manitowoc Public Library. Hi, Laura.
Hi, how are you, Tina?
Excellent.
Good.
So we are here because we're talking about Book Banter, which is one of my favorite days of the month because it means you're here to share some excellent book recommendations with us. So let's start. And I don't know why this is not letting me play a graphic. Usually we have the graphics.
Briefly. I saw the 5 briefly flash across, but there you go.
Here,
okay.
There we go.
There
okay.
you go.
So the first book that you want to recommend is Did You Hear About Kitty Carr by Crystal Smith Paul.
Right. So this is a book that I tried mostly because, I guess basically when we got the playaway devices at the library, those little playaway things that you listen to, this one was available. And I wanted to kind of try one. And I thought, I've heard of this book, whatever, we'll see what it's about. It's really pretty good, honestly. It's kind of reminiscent of 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo or The Vanishing Half. It's a lot about race and passing as one race or the other. And some choices people made. It goes between old Hollywood and current or fairly current, what passes for celebrity in this day and age. It's really pretty good. It was a debut. It was a Reese's Book Club pick. It Goodreads awarded it. Well, it was nominated for some Goodreads awards, which is Goodreads is a thing that a lot of librarians and avid readers use to rate books. It received some awards. It came out in 23. It's good. It's a lot of old Hollywood.
So is it set in old Hollywood or is it?
It's set in old Hollywood. It's also set in the segregated South, and it jumps between eras. A little old Hollywood, a lot of current Hollywood. The segregated South part I thought was really impactful. Kitty's origins, when she went by a different name and identified differently, and how she came to be who she was. And yeah, it's pretty good. There's a lot of secrets that are uncovered in this book, and that's not a bad thing. It doesn't get quite the great reviews that Evelyn Hugo got, but have you read 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo?
I read the first few chapters.
Yeah. I like that book. Okay, book groups love that book. They just cannot get enough of that, and that is sustained popularity. I think this one's comparable, if you like that sort of thing.
Well, so Libby told me when I looked this book up, it said, Did You Hear About Kitty Carr? Is a sprawling page turner set against the backdrop of the Hollywood machine, an insightful and nuanced look at the inheritances of family, race, and gender, and the choices some women make to break free of them.
Right,
That's
right.
pretty intriguing.
It is, and that's pretty accurate. I think, I did like the book quite a bit. I listened to it, which again, sometimes is a little different experience than reading. I don't know if you find that to be true. Listening to me, sometimes I end up feeling a way about the book because I like the reader.
Right, and how they intuit things and perform
right.
it.
You hear this like a very smooth voice or like a really, this person who can do all these voices. I admire that. But sometimes I also get confused when they're going between eras and people's perspectives, and I can't look back at the book because I'm listening. I'm like, no, wait a minute, whose story was this? Especially if you walk away, come back, I'm like, wait a minute, where were we? So that can be a little confusing, but I don't think this story suffered for that. I think it was pretty clear who was talking and which era you were in. Yeah.
So is this one considered historical fiction? Was Kitty Carr a real person?
No. I don't know old Hollywood well enough to know if there was anybody who was like the prototype for this character. She was born African-American and ended up being light enough that she passed as white. And she had that whole buried history, that whole buried story. When she dies, she's been kind of reclusive. She dies and everything goes to these neighbor girls who are African-American. I don't want to say too much, but anyway, no one really understands why she gives them this entire inheritance. They don't know why, really. And then one of them finds a diary, and it goes from there. And it's pretty interesting. It's quite interesting. Yeah.
So is it part mystery or kind of unraveling?
There's an element of mystery there for sure. Right. And I just, again, what I like about some of these books is you read it and you think, what would I do if that were me? Because I never am looking to judge people. I just think like, what would I do? Or sometimes if you think you don't understand why they did it, maybe if you were walking in their shoes, you would understand why they did what they did. If you had all the influences and you had all those experiences, maybe you certainly would be different than you are.
Yeah.
No one can be anybody else anyway. You can only be yourself. But I don't know. I just like to read things and think about, well, maybe something comes up in that book I had never really thought about before, or from that perspective, it's like, okay, yeah, that would have been really different than my experiences in my life growing up in small town, northern Midwest. That's a whole different experience than segregated South in like the 1930s, 40s. You can't use this water fountain. You can't go here. You can't go there. Don't be seen talking to a person of a different race in public. All kinds of things that you wouldn't even think of.
Right. There's something so valuable in being able to read
There
about
is.
that perspective.
I agree.
So that you can understand it better.
That's how you're never going to be able to live that life. But if you can read about what somebody else's life was like, maybe it does help with your understanding.
Right.
So yeah.
And it might help us make better choices going forward too.
Very definitely. Yeah.
I love it. I'm super intrigued by this book. I've already put it on my holds list.
Okay. Yeah. It's like I said, it's not the greatest book I've ever read, but I think it's got value. I really do. And especially for folks who liked Evelyn Hugo, I think you'd see similarities. Absolutely. Yeah.
Nice. Well, speaking of reading a book versus listening to a book.
Yes.
So I read this book, the actual paper copy, and my husband, Jason, he listened to the audiobook. And so it was so interesting.
Yeah, I
because
listened
we were
as
able
well.
to talk about it. But he started playing a little bit of it for me. And I was like, oh, what? Like, that's not how I imagined the characters at all. And even the pronunciation of some things, I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah. Did you like it?
I really enjoyed it.
I did too.
I thought it was an interesting, fresh kind of premise that I hadn't read about before.
Right.
It was interesting to learn some of the historical
definitely
points that they were talking about. Like I was surprised to find out afterwards that one of the main characters was a real character in history.
Right. Yeah, I did not know that either. And then sometimes you go look it up and say, is this real? Or how much of this is real? And things like that. You always learn a little something too. Yeah.
Yeah, when I read the author's notes, I was shocked.
I know.
There were some confusing parts and some things, if you think about them too much, you're like...
You can't think too much, right? You have to suspend reality. Yeah, you absolutely have to suspend. But I thought it was good. It won a Libby Award for the best debut by the debut author in 25. It came out in 24. But I think it just gained a lot of steam as time has gone on. It kind of, I shouldn't say necessarily word of mouth, but I think word of mouth is doing this book some favors too. Yeah. It's hard to define, don't you think? Like, what exactly kind of book is it?
Yeah,
fantasy,
what is it? Would you
time
say
travel,
sci-fi? I'm not sure, right? Like it's historical fiction in a way, but yet it's got this sci-fi kind of bend.
Yeah, fantasy, spy thriller. There's some spying going on. There's some workplace humor situations. It does kind of includes a lot of things that's really hard to define, which makes it kind of cool,
And there's even a little romance in there.
For sure. Oh, there's some romance there. It's a very heartfelt romance, and you find yourself really caring about. I know, for you and I, like we like to relate to the characters. I felt I really embraced some of these characters.
I did too. This is one of those books that when it was over, I found myself still thinking about some of the characters. Like, definitely. What are they doing now? Like, what would they be doing now? I didn't want to let go of them.
And then you kind of say, wait a minute, they're not real. But I do that too. It's like, now I wonder what's going to be in their next chapter. Wait a minute, they aren't real. So it ended right there. But you miss some, you end up missing them sometimes because you really, as you're listening or reading, you kind of really get immersed. And you get to really root for them, I think. Yeah,
it's true. And especially a book like this, it really went into some of the like finer nuances of their lives. I think because of the, there was the historical timeline and then the current timeline and sort of understanding what they were going through as they experienced that. Yeah.
Right. That relationship between the bridge and her person, and he's struck by how improper any of this would have been. Back in his time, it's like, this is just scandalous, and she's just like, this is just what we do. But
it's just a Tuesday, dude.
It's nothing really. I mean, he was so charming and so chivalrous and just so gallant. And I don't know, it was pretty cool. I just thought it just encompassed just about everything you want. I think fiction just takes you to a different place.
Yeah.
And makes you care about these people who are not real. I know they're not real.
No part of it was predictable.
No.
Like I never found myself guessing ahead what could possibly happen.
You really could.
It was kind of delightful that way, that you just let yourself go with the flow.
Yep, just let yourself go. Don't try to figure it out. And you, like you said, you have to suspend reality. You know very well, we think these things couldn't happen. I don't know, maybe they could happen, but we haven't known them to happen.
Yeah.
yet.
It does make you wonder though, like, oh, is
I'm-
there
I'm-
somebody quirky in their life that maybe this is happening to them and they just haven't, you know what I mean? Like, are
yeah,
they from the
exactly.
past or yeah.
Exactly. No, exactly. I agree completely. Yeah. Yeah.
So Jason wanted us to know that he thought this was an excellent read, whether
Good.
you're male, whether you're female. He thought it
I
was,
like that.
yeah.
I like knowing that because it's sometimes it's hard to find something that both men and women enjoy. I would agree. This probably would be one of them. So thank you for that,
Awesome.
Jason. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really appreciated that he was reading it kind of at the same time so that we could
Okay.
keep having these conversations about it. It was kind of fun
Yeah.
in real time.
Did you kind of agree on how you felt about characters and things like that, or did you have different takes on it?
No, yeah, I think we did. And I think we like kind of scratched our heads about the same things.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I don't think he necessarily was thinking about the characters afterwards like we were, but
Well, that's a man for you, right? They just let it go. We kind of take it into our heart and have a hard time letting go, right? Yeah.
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 Okay, well, a totally different book then
You bet.
is 3 Days in June by Ann Tyler.
Right, right. And she has written so many books over her life. I think 20 plus books. I have read some of them. I have only read a handful. Um, she won the Pulitzer for something called Breathing Lessons in 1988. She's been writing it for a decent amount of time.
Mm.
A Spool of Blue Thread is one that a lot of groups have liked. I've not read that one. I've not always loved her books. Sometimes they can be a little like they don't really go anywhere from my perspective. Like I read one a while back. I won't mention it, but I thought, okay, I listened to it. I thought at the end of it, I was like, what was the purpose? Like it didn't, nothing really happened. And you could argue maybe that not a lot, I don't know, maybe nothing much happens in this book, but I think it's beautiful. It's that lead up to the daughter's wedding and how that whole weekend goes. I think more happens in this book maybe than some of them that I've read by her that are longer because she packs a lot into this novella. It's a short book.
Yeah, it really is. I actually
Yeah.
have a copy of it here. I read the whole thing yesterday evening.
You could,
So
sure.
I just wanted to show you too, like the spacing of the text is
Yes.
really generous. So
Yes.
it's not a hard read.
Not at
It's
all.
not complicated. You don't
No.
have to have a dictionary to look up any words that are being
No.
used. Whereas the Ministry of Time, I kept
Yes.
looking up words. I'm
Oh.
like, what is
What is,
perspicacity?
I don't even know what this means, right? You don't have to work. I agree. You don't have to work that hard at this one.
Yeah.
You just kind of take it at face value. I thought her. So the premise is the lady's daughter's getting married. She loses her job or quits or is fired or whatever it is, how you want to look at it, right before the wedding. She's got kind of a complicated relationship with her daughter and with her parents. She's kind of a hard character to get into. Did you find that? I found the main character a little complicated. Like I didn't quite know where she was going sometimes, this Gail. I didn't know
Well,
what to make of her at first. I don't know.
yeah, she's not an effusive person, right?
Not
Like
at
even
all.
her boss said she kind of
Awkward.
lacks some people skills.
She's awkward. Yep. Yep.
So yeah, you could kind of see that. But yeah, I appreciated her and I appreciated the insight.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because these 3 days, not only was it 3 days in time, but
Right.
over those 3 days,
Yes.
they revisited so much of their
Right.
past.
Right. They
And
did pack a lot into 3 days.
yeah, and it kind of was like a Groundhog's Day, right? Like
Yes.
Groundhog's Day, the movie, where it's sort of
Yes.
this is something that happened in the past. Now it happened again.
Right.
And I felt like the wrap up was nice. There was a point where I was maybe 3/4 of the way through and I thought, where exactly is this going? It's
And
just kind of
exactly.
like free
Yeah.
association.
Right.
But then I liked how it wrapped up.
I loved her husband. I thought her husband was that kind of freewheeling, free spirited. He tried to like bring her around to like, don't be so, not that she was bitter, but she wasn't really exactly fun loving. And she was so buttoned up, I guess. I mean, you kind of understand why some of those things happen, but he was so charming. Like, how do you not love this guy? Then he brings this cat, and now she's got this cat, and like he's staying with her, which she's her ex-husband. Does she really want him there the weekend of this wedding? It was kind of improbable. It was kind of beautiful at the same time. And yeah,
It's
nice
funny
little-
because you see the cat in the painting on the cover of the book. In a way,
Yep.
you could almost argue that the cat was the main character of the story.
Cat definitely had some personality, right? I thought it was great. Yeah.
Because there's
Yeah.
a whole story arc about the cat that kind
About
of
the cat.
underlies everything
Yep.
that's happening.
Yeah. And this person's allergic, so now he can't come over because he's got this allergy. What are you thinking? Just a whole bunch of things like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, all in all, it was delightful. Not a life-changing book by any
No,
means, but
no.
just an easy, enjoyable, and it was such a quick read. So it wasn't a big commitment. It wasn't like picking up Game
Right.
of Thrones and knowing, okay,
Right.
this is my
Right.
life for a
Right.
month now.
Right. This is a standalone. It's complete. It's wrapped up. It could be like a beach read, I think. It's not a super tearjerker. I think it leaves you feeling pretty positive without not a ton of ups and downs. It was good. I
Yeah.
liked it. I thought it was good. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting family dynamics.
Very, very.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thumbs
yeah,
up. I would
yeah.
recommend.
Well, that's good. I'm glad.
Okay, what about this one, Laura? The Life We Bury by Alan
S-
Eskins.
So this one is the first in a series called Joe Talbot. Joe Talbot's the main character. I have seen this book many times. It came out in 2014. It's by no means new. I've seen this book so many times, thought, it's not the most appealing cover, really. I mean, when you're used to seeing now bright, flashy, attention grabbing, it's kind of, but it's a really beautifully written book. So the young man, Joe Talbot, is a college student. He has to write a story for an English class about someone's life. And he doesn't really know, he's kind of disconnected. His family dynamics are not very good. He is this amazingly mature person. His mother is kind of a train wreck. He's got a brother who's got some challenges, um, developmental challenges. He feels responsible for the brother because the mother's such a horrible parent, so on and so forth. He's away at school. He has to write a story about someone's life. Who does he write about? Somehow, it all becomes obvious. He ends up writing about a gentleman who's living in a nursing home who doesn't really have any family. He is dying of cancer, and he has been a convicted murderer. He's only in the nursing home. His life sentence was basically commuted because he's in a nursing home because he's going to die. He's very, very ill. So he meets up with this gentleman who doesn't really want to talk with him at
Isn't he
first.
also a veteran? So it's
Yes.
like he
Very complicated. There's some PTSD. There's all kinds of things going on there. Yeah. Yeah. And there too, like, I loved the young man, this Joe Talbot. I love the way it's written. It's set in Minneapolis. Um, he's a really likable, responsible young man. You don't know what to make of this murderer, ex-veteran, all sorts of things, because he seems like there's some softness there, but he's got this hard shell and he's not going to let anybody in. And the story begins to unravel what he was accused of doing. It seems very unlikely that he did, but there sure is evidence, and there's all kinds of things going on. There are a lot of surprises here. It is the first in, as I said, this series. People have loved the sequels. Book groups love it. I've been hearing about this from book groups for years.
oh,
The audio is really good. I listened to it. I love the audio. One of my office mates listened to the audio too. It was really, really well done. Another good audio. Very, very good one. Great mystery, great Midwest story, beautifully written. Word choice is really good. Yeah. Very
oh.
sophisticated. Yeah.
And so where you're going with the description, I don't want any spoilers. I didn't
No.
read this, so I'm just
Yeah.
asking.
And I don't want to do any
um,
spoiling. Yeah.
as he's interviewing this gentleman and
Mhm.
uncovering things, does enough get uncovered that perhaps this gentleman isn't the murderer people assume he is?
There is some redemption. There's redemption in the nick of time, basically. But yeah, there is redemption.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's really kind of beautiful. It goes from this really abrasive man who I think just has pushed everyone away because, he's been hurt. He's been through a lot of things. He was misunderstood. He had PTSD for various reasons. You see, he really had a beautiful soul. He really did. And he was just trying to protect himself and just make sacrifices for others. At some point, he just kind of gave up and thought his life was a waste, but he was going to try to give others the best that they could get out of their lives. And he was very noble, honestly, very noble, but you wouldn't have thought so at first at all.
Wow.
But again,
Wow.
it's not always what it appears to be. People are complicated. Yeah. It's
Books are
very
good
good.
at reminding us of that.
They are. They are, because they can take you so many places into people's minds that, you just see things at face value as a person. When you read a book, you get the backstory.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. Yeah. It's a really good book.
So Joe Talbot, the lead character, is
Yes.
he the continuing factor then in the sequels?
Yes. He and a detective named Rupert, they have a respect for one another as that goes. The person who wrote the book, Alan Eskins, is an attorney who took a creative writing class. So there's a lot of things that I think must be very correct about the legal process. Like a little bit of like a police procedural also, but with such a human element. Really, really well done. Yeah.
Oh, it sounds fantastic. All right,
It's
that's
very
The
good.
Life We Bury by Alan Eskins. And then you've got one more
One
for
more.
us.
Yes.
And this is called The Winemaker's Wife by
Right.
Kristen Harmel.
Right. Now she's been compared in some ways to Kristen Hanna, who's much more well known, certainly.
As a matter of
But
fact, when I saw the author's name, just
yeah.
quickly, I thought it said Kristen Hanna. And I'm like, oh, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, I think people maybe do confuse the two of them. Kristen Harmel actually has written for lots of magazines. She was a magazine, she wrote for People magazine. She wrote for some sports magazines. She's had a very, very interesting past. She's written a lot of books too, but she's just not as well known. She has written, I believe, she has her 15th novel coming out in June, and that is called The Stolen Life of Colette Marceau. She's kind of, I think, moved toward a lot of World War II, aspects of World War II, which is what this one is. This one's been compared to The Nightingale. This one's also set in France, just like Kristen Hanna's Nightingale, but it's a different story. This is the winemaking region of France, the champagne making region. You learn a lot about champagne, and the way things work in that. It's kind of its own world. The champagne making world is its really own world. I didn't know any of this, The characters are really complicated. And I know, look, because you've said in the past you like to relate to somebody, there's some people in here who are really hard to like at first. And there's one person that, in fact, you never really do like until maybe the end, when you find out that person maybe wasn't exactly who you thought that person was. Again, a little bit of redemption. But at first it's like, why are you doing this? You are such a goofball. You're selfish, foolish. You don't really realize what's going on around you. The Germans are approaching and you're just taking foolish chances, which again, but that wasn't me. I wasn't there. I don't know. Everyone had different approaches. Everyone else was very serious, trying to avoid trouble. And this person was like courting trouble. But at the end, it wasn't quite what you thought it was. So it takes some twists and turns. And it's really quite good. This, again, was one that book groups were telling me about for a long time. And I finally gave it a whirl. It's really quite good. Yeah.
I have learned so much about World War II by reading some of these historical fiction pieces. It's so valuable.
And you end up, well, this one has a lot to do with the French resistance and how they used the systems of tunnels and everything where the wine casks were kept and then keeping weapons in wine barrels and things like that. I'm sure that happened. I guarantee that happened. I had never given it a thought before,
Oh, that's fantastic. Really I do love reading about the French resistance.
Yeah. And I would say if people like the French resistance and those stories of courage and just standing up and taking a ton of risks, this would be a really good one for them to read and to dive into. Yeah.
And it's fascinating, all these different treatments of World War II era stories gives you just a little different glimpse, a little different take on it, a little different, knowing that there's not just one historical narrative.
Oh, there's so many threads going through. Yeah. And we still haven't probably heard all of the various aspects. We may never. And they're as unique as the people that were involved. But here's the French resistance. Here's the Russians. There's so many fronts, and we're still learning those stories. But they always make you think. They always make you think.
Yeah. And I think one thing I love about the French resistance is they were clearly the underdogs going up against a much bigger, well-coordinated war machine.
Yes.
Right? And they were effective.
They were protecting their homeland. That the courage, I think, is just incredible because individually they're just a bunch of people living their life and trying to just keep their way of life. They didn't ask for any of this. They weren't equipped for this. They didn't have that experience, but they learned fast. Yeah. But it's amazing what people are capable of, right? Yeah.
Right. Sounds great. I've added this one to my Libby Holds list as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you'll be sorry. It's good. Yeah.
Are you reading something currently?
I am listening to God of the Woods right now. On Libby. I waited a long, long time to get it. It's very, very good. I liked it. It was probably a bestseller last summer, maybe. Pretty good. And I'm reading a children's book right now called The Bletchley Riddle, which is set in Bletchley Park. Where they were doing the decoding. The British were doing the decoding of the Enigma machine that the Germans had. So that's why I'm not against listening to or reading a children's story. Some of them are really well done. And that's a good one right now. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So there's always so much good stuff. There'll never be enough time to read all the books or listen to all the books, will there?
No, there will not.
There will never be. Unless even if they stopped writing right now, I would never catch up with a small percentage of what I'd hope to read. Yeah.
Oh, no. I mean, there's still so many classics that I haven't read. I just recently finally read All Quiet on the Western Front.
I've never read that.
It was, just in line with all these World War II stories that I've been reading.
Sure.
It was a totally different perspective. And it was just a great little read and just horrifically eye-opening.
That's what it's about, though. It really is. Yeah. Yeah.
Laura, thank you so much for joining me today and having this great conversation about books.
Always a pleasure. I look forward to it so very much, Tina. You can't imagine. Yeah.
Me too. All right, viewers, if you're reading something currently or have any recommendations, be sure to leave those in the notes, and then we'll see you next time on Coffee on the Coast. My guest today, Laura Schreiner, Manitowoc Public Library.
Thank you.